Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now to the show at hand.
Mat Zalk, I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business experts and real estate leaders like Darren, who's on the podcast today. A couple of people that you might have heard of in the past that have been on the podcast, Scott Reeves from Chickasaw Community Bank, Lee Easton from Arrow Vision, Mike Bosch from Atento Capital, Vondell Burns. She was great. Go back and look at listen to some of the previous podcasts to get some more information on what people are doing, moving and shaking in and around Tulsa, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, and Northwest Arkansas. Today's episode is brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we are a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. Listen, Darren, you know better than anybody, owning real estate is great, but it can be a pain in the you-know-what. We help our clients take the headache out of that ownership. We manage those things for them so they don't have to get midnight phone calls and HVAC out of order calls in the middle of the day when they're trying to enjoy a summer holiday or whatever else. That is why it doesn't matter what rental you have, a single family home, a condo, a townhouse, an apartment. We have the management solutions you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or info@keyrenterpmc.com. A big shout out, honestly, to Bigger Pockets for the initial intro. Darren and I met 4 years ago. I was visiting Tulsa, wanted to get involved in the real estate scene, and Darren took me under his wing, showed me around. He's working on an awesome renovation project at the time. And that kind of kicked it off. I saw Darren recently again over at Security Bank because we love Security Bank. The two of us love Security Bank. I work with Josh Cole and Lynette Lambert and a bunch of other great people over at the bank. And so we reconnected. A quick intro of Darren, his first real estate investment was on accident. He bought a townhouse and rented it out to roommates in college. Fast forward to now, he's got over 100 units under management, is aggressively investing in the industrial space. Darren's got 2 kids. He's got a 3-year-old like my 3-year-old twins and a 1-year-old like my 1-year-old daughter. So got a lot in common. Darren, really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit. I was asking you about the condo that you bought, and you kind of alluded to not being that interesting of a story. It's not interesting. We all love stories where we make a ton of money. I mean, in real estate, it's base hit. Occasionally you get a triple or a home run. And I love hearing those stories. I'm happy to talk about those stories in my real estate investing career, but sometimes it doesn't go as planned. Right. And I think we can learn as much from some of these quote unquote failures as we can from some of the victories. And education can be expensive. A 4-year degree at Harvard is now $220,000, or it can be inexpensive. Either way, you learn a lot of money. I mean, you learn a lot. And you may spend a lot and may spend less. Tell us about this first acquisition that you did by accident.
Oh my gosh, this was so long ago. So this was in college years. Basically, the story is I was renting a room with a roommate. And the way that the landlord had set it up is he was renting it by room to the specific school. So I just did math in my head, not really knowing too much about real estate or anything like that. But I was a broke college kid, and I was like, how do I save more money? This is how to grow wealth, saving money and making money. So I just counted, I was paying $300. My roommate was paying $300. Guy across the street or across the hallway, $300. And there's a guy in the basement. I think he was paying $400. So I just did math in my head. And then I looked up on Zillow, and it showed that the townhouse condo had sold for $50K. So I just basically, with nothing, no bigger pockets like we had alluded to, nothing along those lines. I just took, I think, $1,200, and I divided $50,000 by $1,200. And I was like, oh, that's a really great return. I should be in real estate. So that summer, basically, I put an offer on a townhouse, just like the same kind of community. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to save my money on rent, which is $300. I'll rent it out to a couple other people, and I'm just going to make bank. But what actually happened was the opposite. I didn't take into account, like I said, I was so green, just thought that, the purchase price divided by how much rent you were going to get is your return. I didn't know anything. Once again, I was like, I think 19 years old. It's like there was an HOA, there's insurance, there's taxes, the utilities, different things along those lines that you have to account for it. And basically, I became a resident manager for free for my parents. My parents actually bankrolled that one. They said, I was like, hey, listen, this is what's happening. You can save $300 a month. You don't have to pay for my rent. And I think they were just trying to push me and be good parents. But I think they knew in their head, like, this is not the correct way to underwrite things.
But I love that. It's such a great move to have them. It might have cost them a little bit of money, but they taught you a great lesson and you developed a lot. I love that. So what ended up happening? You kept it for a little bit or what happened?
Yeah. So kept it throughout college. I thought I was going to land in that city too, but I actually landed here in beautiful Tulsa. So my wife is originally from Bixby area. She was in Kansas City. That's where that townhouse was. And that's where we went to school. She transferred back to Oral Roberts. And so I had to chase her to get her to marry me. And lucky me, we got 2 kids now, beautiful kids that I really enjoy. So, I thought I was going to stay there for the 3 years that I had it. I rented it out room by room. Then I gave it over to a property manager, didn't do any screening, didn't know, a property manager is actually licensed. I'm pretty sure this guy wasn't licensed. Just did everything incorrect, like I did for, the underwriting of the property. So, basically probably, I don't think he's licensed. But he was just a handyman. I was like, great, I'm saving some money. This guy's just going to be able to do all the repairs and he'll be able to save the money. Moved to Tulsa, wasn't really thinking that much about it. Received a couple draws, but at the end of the day, it was just not really great for me. And, at that time, I wasn't trying to vocationally be in real estate. I started a new job, got engaged, different things like that. So it wasn't on my mind. Unfortunately, we put it on the market and basically just broke even on it. But the experience and all the mistakes, you can't really put a price to that.
Yeah, totally. I bought my first property in Boulder, Colorado years and years ago, probably 2015, I guess, because my sister was like, we should buy a property. And I was like, oh, I have a little bit of cash. Let's buy some property. So we bought it for $435, which was it was pretty big. For an investment property, it's pretty expensive. And then like some months later, they forced us to buy the electrical, the solar panels on top, which was another 30 grand, which I didn't really anticipate. So we're in it for 465. Then a couple months goes by and the back of the house just starts like cracking off. I guess they had done a renovation on the back of the house without being permitted and it wasn't done properly. So that cost us another 80 grand. And so that was my first experience buying real estate. It was pretty painful at the time. But real estate's forgiving and it does teach you a lot. My sister who managed that renovation of the 2 bedrooms and a bathroom knows a lot more about construction. It still cash flows. I think that property cash flows really, really well, actually. We probably have more cash in it than we want, but it cash flows. We get now like $4,700 a month in rent, and we probably pay $2,500 to the bank PITI. So does pretty well, but it can feel very painful at the time. You learn some lessons, but real estate's forgiving. So good. I would say that's a great story. If that's considered a failure, may that be the extent of your failures in life, because that's you got away pretty scot free, and maybe you paid a couple of $1,000s for a great education. What so then you transitioned. I mean, what was the process like transitioning through to a full-time real estate career, and what are you doing now?
Yeah. So basically, right out of college, looking for jobs, I landed, and once again, I'm just moved to Tulsa. And I was like, well, I got to support, I got to show, the in-laws that I can make money.
Doing something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I actually got a job, like the first one, it was just door to door. So I was like, I'll just take whatever I can get. I was terrible at it. Oh my goodness. There's just so many things that was wrong with it. Wasn't trained correctly. Didn't have anything along those lines. Just basically bashing my head.
What were you selling?
I was selling water softeners.
Wow. That's a tough gig, but you can cut your sales chops on a thing like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely gave me confidence to get maybe, and then I transitioned basically after that sales job into a US Cellular regional carrier here. Cool. I was doing business sales for, all wireless connections for the company.
And then what kickstarted your transition into real estate?
Yeah. So basically, in that job, I actually did really, really well. Seems like business to business is probably more my suit, not necessarily business to consumer on a hot day in front of a door when they don't know you. So I did really well. I was like top 3% of my company. Wow. For maybe the short season I was there. I think I was there for about 2 years. But I was still on a retail schedule. So, I was closing up shop, Black Fridays were big days, we had to work holidays, and it just really wasn't what I was looking for in a sales position or a position in general. And so naively, inspired by Chip and Joanna Gaines, I was like, oh, if they can flip houses, I could probably flip houses too. And I was like, oh, you can be a real estate agent too. So, I demised in my head, I was like, oh, I can be like an agent and then I'll flip houses on the side and blah, 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 blah. And, basically convinced myself to get the license. And so that was the transition, thinking sales would be able to, go forth and to transfer those skills. And so, I got licensed in 2016.
Great. And that's a tried and true story. I mean, sell some stuff, earn a little bit of money, buy something, flip it and make a little bit more. And then eventually transition into buy and hold, I guess. Right. And that's where you actually build the wealth. You can make some money doing some other things, but building some wealth, in the long term. So you're really good at finding deals. When when you and I were first connected, I knew you as the guy that had a ton of deals. You were sending out emails with great little Google Doc, little Google Drive, links so we could check out the photos. How did you start getting deals under contract? Some of them you bought, some of them you flipped, as we just said. But how did you become known as the guy that has deals, and how did you get deals?
Yeah, so that kind of just goes back to my sales background. So when I first started in 2016 as an agent, I thought I was just going to do retail. I was like, great, I want to do, just show people that want to buy houses, not necessarily the investor side. And so I did really well. I was doing a lot of the, fundamental basics of lead generation, cold calling, letters, different things along those lines. And then, since I didn't have kids, as kids take a lot of time, I was building out, just like, how do I analyze deals? How do I do this? And that's kind of where I came across Bigger Pockets. Their resources are amazing. And they just basically lay out in a very systemized and analytical way, what is investment property? How do you flip properties? Different things along those lines. So the deal finding kind of came later into that, just because at first it was the retail experience that I wanted to provide. So basically what had happened is, this is on Bigger Pockets. I would just find the people and connect, find their email, find their phone number, and basically, just cold call investors. Luckily, there's not one guy named Curtis, and he goes, why don't you just follow me along for this weekend and I'll show you kind of the projects that we're doing. And so, that's part mentor, part, just being open. And, this community of investors is actually really, really open. That's what I found. And, same thing for me too. You kind of pay it forward just because, there's so much paper knowledge that you can have, but not like real life experience until, you find someone. So that guy named Curtis, he was like, hey, follow me around. I'm doing a couple projects. This is kind of my buy box. And if you find anything like this, send it my way and I'll close it. I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to show you 20 houses and pretend like, you love the wall colors and, the granite and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, this is actually more my speed. Let me try to find these deals. And that is kind of what started the whole entire thing.
And then how did you transition? Now you're buying industrial, but before you bought industrial, you were actually, Curtis, you must have shown Curtis some deals. He, you guys closed on a couple, he closed on a couple that you showed him, maybe kicked you a little bit of comp for finding those deals for bird dogging. And bird dogging is such an amazing skill. It's also super, super important in what we do, because the MLS will show you a partial picture, but some of the best deals are had, off market, just by literally bird dogging, just hunting up a phone number and talking to people and saying, I can help you out of a problem. You need cash now, and I can help you solve that problem. But so once you started bird dogging for him, you talked about one of your first deals that you found you're too scared to buy it, right? And then you said to me earlier, you don't need to be perfect to jump in, which is such an amazing quote, because you don't need to be perfect to jump in. The look before you leap, I guess, old adage is so common. You hear it, but I actually just say, close your eyes and jump, because there's stuff that you don't know. There's stuff that you won't know. And if you analyze too much, you subject yourself to analysis paralysis, and you'll never sign on the dotted line. You'll never actually, get a deed transferred over to you. So tell us about your first deal and being too scared to buy it.
Yeah. So once again, shout out to Curtis again. He just kind of took me full cycle, just a rental property, a BRRRR, whatever you want to call it, renovation too. And so, when I saw that, I was just like, well, let me just try to copy paste it. But instead of his buy box, let me try it in some other area. So once again, I had found him some deals, and then he kind of showed me his paperwork of like analytics, and he's just like, hey, listen, I think you can rent out for this much. I think this is the renovation. And guess what? The bank is going to give me back the money using, a refinance strategy. And I was like, wait, is that real? And he's like, yeah, let me just show you the bank docs that I just signed. And I was like, hey, you bought this one for like 75K, or I sold it to you, for 75K. We found it together. You put in 25 and it appraised at like 140 and you pulled out all your cash. He's like, yep, that's the name of the game. And I was like, okay, let me try it myself. So this one is really funny. I found this one for sale by owner on Zillow. Those really can't be found anymore, but this was in 2016. And, for me, the way that he had done it was he had used his cash. And so I was like, well, I have all my pennies saved up. Like I can only buy a $40,000 property. So I looked and I found it was actually this for 60 grand. And, I just started writing offers. I said, hey, listen, for whatever is close to 40, let me just write 40. And so that one actually landed. And then I ran it through the calculator and I showed it to him. I called around, got some quotes, but this is just so funny. I kind of smack myself now, but I had called the insurance and they had quoted me for a owner's policy, not a rental policy. And so when I plugged that into the calculator, I was like, oh my gosh, that eats up all my cash flow. That was the only metric that I was using at the time. So I was like, it doesn't fit my criteria, even though, it hits my buy box and the equity is going to be there. And, all these different wealth builders of real estate, because I was just focused on cash flow at the time. Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh, that eats all my cash flow. And I just got so scared. And once again, back to the quote, like, you don't have to be perfect. I probably would have figured it out if I would have jumped in. It's like, oh, this is an owner's policy. I need a renter's policy or rental dwelling instead of actually insured for all the things that you have. And I definitely would have figured it out, but I just got so scared that I just, who wants it? And I basically just wholesaled it for $1,000. So I only made $1,000 on that house that I'd found and negotiated and done everything. And, but yeah, unfortunately it's probably worth triple that, maybe even quadruple that now.
So you lost a little bit on that one, but again, good learning, good educational experience. What's the difference between a rental policy and an owner policy? Is it just the depreciable roof and the lower deductibles, or what is it?
Yeah, so the owner's policy kind of insured all your personal property too. So that added a lot to that. But at least in that specific one, I'm pretty sure that they had a lower deductible and it was like kind of hit up to the max. Didn't know that you can either set the number or take 80% of the appraised value by the State Farm or whomever. Yeah. And then once again, your personal property on top of that too. So
So a couple of things. We use Chris Lyle over at State Farm. He's great. He's awesome. I love him. He does my personal stuff or vehicles, the whole thing. But on your home, on your own personal, what do you say, the owner policy? I think that's the case. Like they don't do a depreciation of the roof. They will do if you have a 20-year-old roof, they'll still pay for a new roof. That's a big difference, and it costs them a lot more, so they charge you a lot more. And then lower deductibles. I don't know the personal property inside the house for sure. The other thing that State Farm doesn't do that we, as as a reputable company, they won't go to certain levels. And some other companies in town will, which is very useful when you're buying really, really decrepit old properties that you're going to renovate to insure them during the period. Like State Farm won't let you go below us. I think, as you said, 80% of the replacement cost of the entire house. So if they look at it on their CoreLogic system and they say, look, it would, to build this brand new, if it went up in a huge fire, it would cost 180 grand. They won't let you insure it for 25 because you just bought it for 25, knowing that you're going to put in 100 of new materials and everything else. So you got to go to Foremost or some other companies that are willing to let you basically write your own policy. And they say, look, if it burns, I'm giving you 20 grand, whatever it is. So that's an important distinction. But I had not forgotten. I had not remembered that an owner policy is much more expensive than a rental insurance policy. So you buy this house. So you flip this house, make $1,000, and then how did you muster up the courage to buy the next one whenever you did?
Yeah. And so once again, my knowledge and, the experience was limited just because it was just him. I was just in a very specific buy box, only being able to afford $40,000 at that time. Then I learned about construction loans. I learned about hard money, private money, partnerships, and different things like that, and started networking on a really normal basis. And so kind of getting back to your first point of finding deals, if you're the person finding deals, you usually can hopefully partner with people to either with the capital side or the experience side, because you have what they want. You have what most people want, which is a good solid deal, or, whatever the case might be. And so as just that experience kind of got deeper, and the knowledge and all the education kind of get further and further, plus then with, human resources, whether it be partners or other people, property managers, bankers, different things like that, that is kind of what shot me towards the, in the stratosphere.
So if you have a deal, the money will come, in my experience. I mean, deals are so hard to come by. If you have the deal, the money will come. So if you don't have money and you're out there bird dogging, you're just trying to make your first foray into the industry, and you're working a job, and on Saturdays and Sundays, you're running around just, as they say, driving for dollars, I think is the bigger pockets term, maybe the real estate term. You find a deal, do not be afraid. Call Darren. He will find somebody with cash for you, because a good deal is hard to come by. And you've got the core asset, right? You've got it. You've got your eyes on the core asset, and the cash, which has been abundant and cheap for the last decade or more, will find you, and you'll be able to put something together. And I would say, I mean, what do you see if there's a cash partner and a deal partner, and they, the cash partner just wants to be the cash, and the deal partner says, look, I found the deal. I'm willing to renovate it, manage it. I mean, is it a 50-50 split of the ownership? What do you generally see in an operating agreement between two people like that?
Yeah, that's what's lovely, is that it's all negotiable. So sometimes it's just, hey, listen, I want to fix 7, 8, 9, 10% on the money. And that's usually held within a mortgage, but sometimes it is, within the operating agreement, 50-50 or something along those lines. I think for the couple partnerships that I had when I was first starting out, I would only want to bring in about 25% of the down payment, but then still retain 50-50. So I was being able to leverage a little bit more, but still put in a little bit of money. And so that kind of worked well for those beginning partnerships.
I mean, for anybody listening or watching this, I think you will, go to friends and family and say to them, I've got this killer deal. Here are the numbers, here's some sensitivity I've run in case the rents are lower, or the costs are higher, or whatever. You throw out any ideas that you've got, Mr. Cash Partner or Mrs. Cash Partner, and then let's do this thing. You can get it done. So you ended up buying some real estate. You now own 100 units under management, which is super impressive, exciting, good for you. Well done. That's basically in 5 years, in 6 years, maybe. You started in 2016, you kind of pushed through, but tell us how you transitioned from owning residential units to industrial. And then let's talk about, the benefits of owning industrial vis-a-vis, the residential side, which is where we live in Keyrenter.
Yeah. So residential is amazing. And just kind of the story that how it kind of progressed is, for me, the way that I learn is through example. And so once again, really thankful for everybody that kind of paid it forward. And once again, it's one of those things, I'll just say this really quickly. I don't really know too many people that are shady within the business that last a long time. So, if you do have a fear of like, oh, they're going to snipe my deal or whatever the case may be, no, like they're probably not, because their reputation means a lot more than, $20,000 that you could bring to the table. And so that's just another pain point that some people might have, and some fear that, is not really warranted. But yeah, basically through 2016, I was just helping investors. So I transitioned from retail and then investors to then, hey, I'm just only helping investors as a licensed agent, sometimes wholesaling. And then I picked up my first rental property in 2017, and that was in Broken Arrow. And I did a lot of creative financing just because, once again, I was limited in my capital. So this one was bought with a lease purchase. Yeah. So I found this one for sale by owner. At the time, I hadn't been doing too much marketing. I had been cold calling, different things like that. Just in the agent business, the retail business, that's one way to drum up some business and lead gen. So this one, I had tried to sell it a couple times. They were, a couple $1,000s off. They're like, well, he wants 75. I want like it for 70 or something like that. And it's just really frustrating because I was like, that's only $5,000. You're going to make it up, And so really frustrated with the whole entire experience. And I said, you know what, let me just do it, because I could probably do this. I have enough experience now. And I can use one of the wealth builders of real estate, which is leverage.
Right.
So I went to the owner and I said, hey, listen, it's not selling and you can't find anybody and you're not going to be able to do this yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rent it for you for a year at $500 a month. I'm going to fix it up, and you can see all the receipts. You can see, all the work being done. And then after 1 year, I'm going to buy it for the $75K that you want. And so I used creative financing for that one. Made a lot of mistakes, didn't do too much. There was termites, there was, gas lines and, water heater and everything imaginable that you needed to fix, you did. And I went over budget, and, I thought I was going to do some of the work myself, and I didn't, just because I'm not handy. But once again, using that creative financing and then taking charge of like, hey, I'm not reliant on someone to make offers, or, if their underwriting is a little off or something along those lines, I was trying to push it. And so that kind of began 2017. I picked up a couple more in 2018. And then I was like, okay, the next goal for me is to become full-time, to where I'm not helping out investors or wholesaling, then I'm just doing everything in-house for myself. And that was in 2018, end of 2018, that I, transitioned out. And that was largely in part because I bought a portfolio of single families. I think it was about 6 to 7. And, that was a really big deal trying to put it together. So yeah, residential has been a blessing and amazing. I'm still trying to do a couple deals, maybe 3 to 4 per year, but not as much as I used to, which averaged, 10 to 12 per year, I would say.
Beautiful. We had Kurt Volk on the show recently, and he was talking about the BRRRR strategy, which is what you'd referred to also as having done with Curtis a little bit, and him explaining that to you. And we talked about, what if your budget goes over? What if you have termite damage? So he bought a property, it was termite damaged. He saw the up in the attic that the sill plates were okay. He didn't know about the plate on the floor. He knew he could replace studs, but he was uncertain. And so he he gave them a TRR basically that said, I need about $10,000 off. It ended up costing him, by luck, only $1,000 to remediate the termite damage. So he ended up $9,000 ahead in the transaction, which was really good for him. But sometimes you don't know, and it's scary, and you come out on the losing side of the numbers at some point. But again, real estate's forgiving. You got to jump in at some point, and whatever else, the rest becomes history, and it all gets made up over time. But what other creative financing strategies have you employed to get deals done?
Yeah, and just to kind of mention that, time in real estate is a big factor, because once again, those people were kind of bickering over $5,000. Now that house is worth $160,000. Right. And even when it did go over budget, 10 grand, 15 grand, that was all made up within time, and then it could be paid down, by the loan and stuff like that.
And your rent rate is now, you were renting that for $900 at the time. Now it's renting for $1,500, I suspect. I mean, that's nature of the market, inflation and hard assets being a hedge against that inflation.
Yeah. And once again, that was kind of the thought process with that one. I knew going in, like, hey, most people would not pay an extra $5,000. I don't mind spending $5,000 in a place that I know, which was Broken Arrow. And, a lot of people would be like, yeah, I would love to invest $5,000 in Broken Arrow. So taking charge and knowing, hey, not every deal is going to be, I pull out all my cash. But yeah, you want to invest in places where you want to. And yeah, once again, so creative financing, that's kind of something that I've been doing a lot, just because at the time I didn't have that much capital. Mm-hmm. And so that one was a lease purchase. I've also done, for example, another story. This is when I was kind of marketing and not really taking on clients. I did a lot of yellow letters, and I'm sure you're familiar with those, but basically hitting anybody with equity up just to get, a relationship started. And so this one, she was actually going through a pretty bad divorce. And what had happened, actually, hopefully this is okay to share, but she said, hey, listen, you're going to have to, do another lease purchase with this one, just because I haven't situated everything with the ex, or the husband, soon to be ex-husband. And so she said, I don't want anything to do with this property. I'm, all these memories or blah, blah, blah. So, emotionally was there. And I said, great, well, let me do this for you. Let me lease it out for you, and you can make some cash flow on it. And, I'm going to take care of all the renovations, all the repairs, your taxes, your insurance, different things like that. So you actually make an income during that time. And then from there, when everything kind of gets situated, then, when the chips fall where they are, then I'll just buy it from you. And so that was a really amazing, way to be creative in in real estate to not like muddy up all the waters and
Sure.
actually fix the problem for her. So other things that I've done is seller carrybacks. Those are probably one of my favorites, just because if you can add value and it's not speculative, you're able to leverage up and just get even better returns. And so, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of leveraging and using any and all wealth builders towards your for real estate towards your net worth. But yeah, this specific deal, a seller carryback, once again, too, let me kind of rewind, is if the seller has equity or seller financing. So I'll kind of explain both of those. So seller financing is, if a seller owns a property outright, they're actually becoming the bank for you. So for example, I bought a house in Broken Arrow. He wanted a little bit much, but he owned it cash. So I said, hey, listen, if you carry the mortgage back, what I'll do is I'll pay you a monthly income and you'll be able to get, let's say, $20,000, $30,000 up front. But then I'll be able to give you that monthly income in 3 years. I'll pay it off, refinance it, blah, blah, blah. And so I was able to make a deal happen that way. Basically, it's when the seller becomes the bank for you, they hold the mortgage, they hold the note. And, in some cases, you can get a better rate, a better amortization, a better fixed period and different things like that.
And that's great for owners too, that don't want a huge tax hit. If they know that they're making a lot of money today, but 3 years they're going to be retired, which is often when this happens, right? People want to start offloading their portfolio because they don't want to manage properties anymore. They're getting into retirement age. They want to spend more time on vacation with their family, et cetera. They're willing to take the hit in a future year where they, don't have as much income and therefore won't pay as much tax on the sale of the property.
Yeah. And then once again, being creative in actually him getting his number, but then me being able to leverage out a little bit better and get better terms too. So that's a seller financing. A seller carryback is basically the seller becomes a bank for you, but it's in the second position. It's usually not for, the majority of the loan. It's usually for anywhere from, 5, 10, sometimes even 20%, 30% of the actual purchase price. And so, for example, same example, a house for $100,000, instead of carrying back $80,000 or carrying $80,000, he would want to only carry, $10,000 or $20,000. Usually in that case, they don't own it outright, but they can kind of either half their returns or whatever the case may be, and then actually gain interest on that too. So one example of that was I actually took down a 5-package deal using a carryback.
Nice.
And she was just really firm on her price. Hey, I want $400,000. I want $400,000. It's like, I'm sorry, it's not worth that much, but if you were to carry back this and blah, blah, blah. So it got a little complicated, but, after communicating and, just like, hey, it's worth it. If you work with me, you'll get this, you will get it. It's just not now. So, if you're willing to work with me, give me 3 years, 4 years, then I'll be able to do this for you and stuff like that. So the deal is 5 units. I picked it up. She carried back actually a large amount, like $100,000. So I didn't actually have to come out of pocket any. And part of them were rented out. Part of them I had to kind of do a little value add. And basically throughout the years, whenever a vacancy would come up, I would just use the cash flow to renovate it. And that worked out really well. And once again, she got her price, but I got my terms. So it's just another time on the table. So we did interest only, 3%. So it's pretty low.
Beautiful.
For 3 years. I actually paid it off early because I had improved the property so much. And, she was really, really happy with the deal. She got her price. I got my terms. I got control of the asset, bumped up rents, and then renovated the things that I needed to, got the valuation that I needed to, and paid her off early. And she was very thankful for that too. So
a couple of things. One, price is only one part of a negotiation. There's so much other, there are so many other terms of a negotiation that, can still make the deal work and be win-win for everybody. That's number one. Number two, the common theme throughout all of your stories is that solutions are where you're going. If you're thinking about being solution oriented, again, price is only one part of the negotiation. So think about what else a seller wants, and you can help them create the solution for that, whether it's getting out of a property because they're going through a divorce, or needing to have a period where they're making a little bit of income, but we don't know what's going to happen with the property, whatever it is. Solution orientation towards finding a good positive outcome for everybody. So then you transition into industrial. There's only one other person that I know that's in industrial, Daniel Regan, a good friend of mine, was at Price Family Properties for a long time, has a side portfolio. He's now left and is doing something else. But what was attractive to you about industrial, and how'd you even, it's a part of the business that we don't talk about a lot because we're on the residential side. How'd you get involved, and what do you love about it?
Yeah. So the next step for me was commercial real estate. And so I was like, okay, the most talked about, the biggest asset by dollar amount is actually multifamily. So it just makes sense for me as a single family, a small multifamily kind of operator to get into multifamily. And so, for the past, I would say couple of years, I've been taking some swings, the financing is really attractive and, just learning all about it. But, there's so many other pieces of commercial real estate that's really not talked about. And, maybe it was just because I was in the circle of influence of, multifamily and different things like that. But I said, wait, as I did research on every, commercial property, industrial really stood out to me because it really is kind of almost an enigma. There's not a lot of people talking about it. Bigger Pockets doesn't talk about it. They talk about, multifamily and mobile home parks now from Brendan. And so I was like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity there for me to learn and become an expert. And from that, be able to maybe dominate. Also, so that's one thing. There's a kind of an information disparity. Second thing is, now that I'm in industrial real estate, the majority of people are older. So if I project out, like I said, you say, a lot of investors, a lot of people, but there's only like 2 people that that's in industrial space.
Right.
So if I project out my career on a 30, 40-year basis, I'm going to become that old person that is in industrial real estate and an expert in the market, right? So me and Daniel, so I'll have to hook up with Daniel Reagan, and just like me and him will be people of Tulsa Industrial.
Dominating the real estate world in industrial in Tulsa.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the third thing I would say are net leases. Oh my goodness, net leases. You have made your career in taking care of headaches. I am kind of wanting to get away from headaches. And so net leases are my way of getting out of headaches.
So explain what a net lease is, a triple net lease or other types of net leases. And then I also want to understand specifically what is industrial. For those of us that don't know how you categorize industrial, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So net leases are, man, they're so beautiful. And it seems so foreign to us as, residential. So basically, triple net leases stand for net. So triple net. Each net kind of corresponds to an expense. So in these leases, it's very common in industrial and sometimes in retail that the tenant pays for the property insurance, the property taxes, and then common area maintenances.
So those are the 3 nets.
Those are the 3 nets. So, it actually sounds pretty absurd, but whenever I rent out an industrial property, I get to charge back the tenant the property insurance, the property taxes, and then, say I mowed the lawn or, I had to fix the gravel, the driveway or something like that. I can charge him for that. And then also, if he clogs the toilet, I'm not getting a call. He has to do that himself. He has to unclog it himself. So that's really, really powerful. And it's really, really nice too. So you had mentioned calls in the middle of the night. I've done that and I still am doing that. But yeah, I love triple net leases because I don't have to do that anymore.
If you get a phone call saying my toilet is clogged, you say, why don't you find a plumber on Yelp and call that plumber and get it handled?
Exactly.
I love that. So what is industrial? What does the category include?
Yeah. So industrial real estate is actually, just some statistics. It's actually the largest per square foot commercial asset in North America. That might be United States. I think it's in North America too. So I'm not sure, but yeah, you can double check on that for me. So what is it, and why is nobody actually talking about it? So I categorize industrial properties in 2 categories. One is warehouses. So that's kind of like position to distribution and logistics. And then on the other side is manufacturing. So that is, think about anything that manufactures either maybe a weld shop or plastics or, paper products too. And so the best way that I can kind of explain it is to our investors. If you think of a warehouse, think of Lowe's. Lowe's is really high ceiling metal building. It's positioned to consumers, but they have these racks, and basically they can get any and all materials because of the distribution logistics. Now, usually those are on a busy corner, on a busy street, so it's positioned to the public. But that is kind of the style of building that you want. And then if you take it further, one more up the chain, how does that Lowe's off of 71st get all their stuff? Well, there's a distribution center in Dallas that's just basically a really big warehouse. It's not open to the public, but basically it just connects all the Lowe's with all the materials that they need. So that is, a big boy, warehouse. On a local level, I just took down a deal that is a used appliance shop. You probably heard of them, J&J Appliances.
Wow, love that. J&J are huge.
Yeah. So they're huge. They have a couple retail locations, 2 retail locations. And so how do they get their used appliances to those retail locations? And then they do fix them at that location too. So it's part manufacturing, part warehouse. So, that doesn't see the public. The public doesn't see that warehouse, but they're fixing it, and then they're cleaning it, and then they put them on semis or box trucks and then get them to their retail locations.
Did you retain them as a resident, as a tenant in that property, or have they gone?
Yeah. So that one was that's a short sale lease back. And, once again, don't want to get further, but that particular deal, they're actually moving because they opened up their second location. So they have warehouse space in there. But this one is 22,000 square feet. So it takes a long time to move that stuff, especially, if they're fixing it and logistics and stuff like that. So that one's a very short lease. But yeah, I get a great asset at the end of it. And once again, some name dropping in Tulsa.
I love it. The industrial space. I just don't have a ton of people that do it in my network. I do have a friend that does, he likes the cinder block construction with 5, 10, 15,000 square feet of warehouse in the back with a small office up front. So they say, look, the conditioned space is limited. We run the admin side, the scheduling side of like an HVAC business out of the front. And people, rarely do people come in and say hi to us. Rather, we're distributing all the product that sits in the warehouse. And then we're deploying the vans, the trucks, the people that might report to duty at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever it is. We send them out. And then we have a small staff of 2 or 3 or 4 people in the front that are just, handling billing, scheduling, et cetera. So I do have a friend that does that, and he swears by it. It's the only thing he's ever done. He owns a ton of that space. And again, loves that, where people aren't calling him. They might call him to solve something if the roof blows out during a tornado and he needs to address it with insurance, but he's not getting involved otherwise in any of the day-to-day, operations of the real estate component of their business. So I love it. Darren, tell me a little bit. What are you reading? What are you ingesting in terms of content? How do you make yourself smarter in any of the spaces that you operate?
Yeah. So right now, basically at the very beginning of my career, 2016, 2017, I had read every book on real estate, and they kind of tell you the same thing. Luckily I read enough of those to get into the game. Right now I'm reading a lot about business books and just kind of rereading a lot of different things. So right now it's who, not how. So I'm kind of developing my leadership skills and trying to empower other people to do what they're really good at, whether it be creatively, whether it be administratively. For me, I'm kind of a big picture person, and, I understand the research component of it very well. So that's kind of what I'm reading right now, just trying to help my team lead them better and become really good at hiring people and retaining talent too. So who, not how is what I'm kind of digging into right now.
I love it. Leadership and growing your team. I really appreciate that. And we're doing the same thing at Keyrenter. It's hard. It is not easy at all to take other people and imbue them with the same sense of responsibility and core values, and, make them do what you do, what you have done so well. It's definitely a big challenge. Darren, where do people find out more about you? If they want to connect, reach out, network, how do they find you?
Yeah, so I love to connect with people. Once again, I try to pay it forward just because, there's a really big factor of mentorship, and, you can learn from all my mistakes and, get my expertise. So I made a specific backlink on my website. Usually I would just say my website, which is my name, darrenhuang.com. But I made a specific site. It's darrenhuang.com/Tulsa. I've opened up a couple Thursdays and Friday lunches, so anybody can book a lunch for me for free, and I'd just love to connect with them. And that just links you to a Calendly invite. And so, yeah, I would love anybody and everybody, once again, specific to Tulsa. I don't want to really travel to somewhere else. But yeah, that is going to be the best way to connect with me. And I'd love to connect with anybody and everybody.
DarrenHuang.com / or / Tulsa.
/ whatever the slash is, right? Tulsa. Good. Yeah.
Darren Huang, owner of 100 units and a bunch of industrial. We really appreciate you being on, sharing your expertise. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.